Hi everybody, welcome to this installation of the Hive Talks. Today we've got Ross with us. All right, Ross?
On it.
Cool. So you may not know this, but Ross and I are incredibly boring and spend a lot of our time discussing things like taxes, mortgages, investments. And we thought today we'd probably share some of our thoughts and kind of latest kind of conversations because there's been a real theme, um, very much on LinkedIn, but also in our client base of people asking, should I overpay my mortgage? Is that a wise choice? And kind of our our kind of immediate answer is it depends, generally speaking, but not every advisor, I suppose, takes that more kind of open-minded view. So, Ross, do you want to lead us off because it's kind of you that's triggered the conversation, and yeah, give a bit of context to it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of simple question on the face of things, but weirdly, it's the kind of topic that kind of comes up, but there's almost nowhere to turn. Like, who do you turn to? Do you ask your IFA? But then you get talk about pensions and everything like that. Do you ask your spouse? Do you ask your colleagues? I think my kind of point in all of this is that I wanted to give a bit of a framework for people to think about it because it can be important. So, you know, broadly, there's two schools of thought. Should you overpay your mortgage? One school of thought is yes, you absolutely should, and the other one is no, you absolutely shouldn't. So, but I thought I'd kind of flesh them out really
Mhm.
because the interesting part, as far as I can see, is that whenever anyone is discussing it, whether it's online or in person, it gets quite kind of polarized and usually the kind of the opinion is hugely dogmatic. It's like, no, you absolutely should, and there's no deviating from this person's kind of guidance or opinion, which I don't think is kind of healthy in this debate, and hence why what we're doing today. So, yeah, those two schools of thought: should you overpay? Should you not? Now, there's two competing factors there. So, the school of thought on yes, you should overpay your mortgage is very much down a line of security and safety. So if you pay down your mortgage, no one can touch your house then once it's paid off. It's a secure asset, which you can then rely on for, however many years or decades,
Mhm.
until you want to, it's not the full financial plan for you, but it's just a primary course of action. Now, that element of things is quite it's a different set of factors to the school of thought where you absolutely shouldn't pay down your mortgage. Now, the school of thought where never pay down your mortgage, do your make it absolute last on the list of things to do, is very much down a kind of a mathematical process. So the general logic there is that mortgage debt is a very low risk way of acquiring debt. It's very cheap. It's about the cheapest possible form of debt that you can take out. And therefore, if you have surplus cash, then make an investment and almost to a certain extent choose any investment that's out there, and your rate of return will be better than what you're losing by paying down the mortgage. So broadly, your rate of return if you're paying down a mortgage is going to be somewhere between 3 to 5%
Mhm.
because that's the interest rate you pay on a mortgage. Of course, if you put your 10 grand, your 50 grand, your 100 grand into somewhere else, another investment asset, then you're achieving 10% rate of return, then your world is getting better by somewhere between 5 to 7%. And that kind of compounds over time. So very mathematical, again, very logical, but both are logical. That's my point.
Yeah, I think that's it, Ross, because we see it all the time. It's very easy to make a logical argument. It's very difficult to execute it. So that's the thing. Um, it's funny. I don't have the luxury of having it up for debate whether or not we pay our mortgage down in my house. You know, my wife. It's kind of we are paying the mortgage down. That's what we're doing. And you
There'll
know,
be it's really interesting though, because that'll be a reason for that. And the reason for that is kind of going back to kind of our DNA and how we're built. Our limbic brain warns us where there's danger, and it's very difficult to kind of deviate from that danger alertness. So it's something called debt aversion.
Mhm.
So, many people's brains are wired so that they just cannot cope with debt because it's like you're on the Serengeti, it's like a sign of danger. The two are kind of deeply interrelated. It's very difficult to get out of the way of that.
Yeah, but time has kind of proved it right. So it was, it's not, well, we discuss it all the time that everyone, we like crypto. We've been involved in crypto for many years. Many of our clients are, many of our kind of network are. We kind of feel like everyone, if you just followed your initial thesis, which is Bitcoin and kind of maybe kind of putting it in cold storage or kind of just in safe storage, essentially, if everyone had just done that and didn't try and get too clever, then we know a lot of people who'd be retired right now. But the problem is, your kind of thesis evolves through time, and basically you get a bit too clever. I think is sometimes part of the issue. It's all logical. It's all underpinned by a logical process that you're looking through it. So kind of what I'm saying is, it actually feels like a win that we've been aggressively paying down our mortgage, even though initially I'd have preferred to have invested that cash, because you do have to execute on the investment, and things sound really easy,
Absolutely.
but they're not. I remember we were discussing it with one of my friends. Yeah, another one of my boring conversations. But he was saying, if I had a time machine, it'd be really straightforward. I'd go back and invest in Amazon, be a multimillionaire, fantastic. And it's like, yeah, it kind of sounds easy, but you'd have to execute the investment and keep the investment in there through tough economic times and not get too clever and not do something else. I
Absolutely.
think that's it. That by taking the responsibility for your own investments, you have to also know that they go wrong. And
Mm.
that's kind of on you as well. So there's like a banker of paying down the house, but
Yeah,
there's very little kind of variant of how that's going to play out. But actually, if you kind of take the money and try and redeploy it in other places, it's not just having the right kind of theory that you're deploying, it's executing it and sticking with it.
absolutely. Yeah, you have to get that 10%, otherwise the maths kind of falls over. So, as with all these kind of things, this isn't investment advice or debt advice. I think it's just to highlight that there's two opposing schools of thoughts, and there are reasons that underpin both of them. Probably to sprinkle a little bit extra in there as well. Um, if your source of the overpayment is coming from your limited company or your kind of trading business, tax plays a part as well.
Yeah.
So, what I'd say there is it can be tax inefficient to be paying down your mortgage because your mortgage is a personal asset. So if you've got to take out £10,000 for argument's sake, because you've generated extra profits in your company for the year, to take out that £10,000 and put that £10,000 in your mortgage, well, you actually have to take out
Mhm.
£15,000 so that you can pay the tax man, and then you've got £10,000 to pay for your mortgage. So your return on investment has reduced there. Whereas, it's quite feasible and quite possible to make investments in your company, and you've got £15,000 worth of
Mhm.
cash to make that investment. And again, you're getting the benefit of the kind of compound. So again, we've still got this kind of competing kind of factors of what I was saying there is very logical, very mathematical, sprinkled a bit of tax in there.
Mhm.
That person who's got debt aversion controlling the direction, they won't have that same viewpoint. It will still be a case of, okay, well, it's cost us tax, but I've still paid down 10 grand of debt. So I don't think we'll ever kind of reconcile those. I think it's just the highlight there are two opposing schools of thoughts. And
I think that's it. I kind of have an allergy to any categorical advice. I was kind of, while you were speaking, I was trying to think of what's our, what are our standards. So we, like, what are we categorical about? We believe the business should be profitable. In terms of advice, most dentists should be running through a limited company. But beyond that, it kind of really depends, and it's a blend of what you're trying to do. So you may be kind of high risk in some spaces, but then kind of mitigating that by being very kind of conservative and conventional in other spaces. So it's a bit like with an IFA. An IFA is an important service, and we believe you should be investing some money in your pension. What that blend is very specific to you, but you almost want to have done your thinking before you arrive at their door. So
yeah,
if you imagine they're kind of like a steak restaurant, so steak's great, but if you don't want steak, don't go to that restaurant. That's all they're going to deploy to you. It's good, but it's very specific in what the function is, and their
yeah,
advice is going to be around pensions because that's what they do. Whereas you're
yeah,
looking I mean, it's really nice the kind of journey we go on with clients from kind of acquiring their first site to kind of building that site, acquiring multiple sites, and then their exit, and then their kind of investment portfolio that they've been building through their career. And it starts to get really exciting. You know, we had a client make a really significant investment in whiskey the other day, which is kind of new ground for me anyway. I hadn't seen it before, but when you see the kind of rationale behind it and how it's trying to capture the emerging whiskey market in Asia, it's like this is really exciting and that's really shrewd. So it's very specific to each individual. I'd say be nervous if anyone's kind of saying you absolutely must do this,
Yeah,
because it's rarely the case that that's ever the case. And
yeah.
I definitely get very cold to it. Were there any other things you wanted to cover, Ross?
I'm quite happy. I think it's like I say, today was very much about kind of just giving you the framework before we get kind of too distracted with whiskey, because I don't think there's always a danger if you kind of you
Not the first thing you should
drink your
do.
stock. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's
yeah.
not the first play you should make.
But if any of this is kind of resonating, do get in contact, and we'll always try and steer you as best we possibly can. But I suppose the annoying kind of answer is, yeah, whether you should overpay your mortgage or not will depend on your own circumstances, I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, and everything comes with a trade-off. No solutions, only trade-offs, but we're here to help you make the right decisions. Cheers, Ross.
Thank you.